Bleep, blog, bloop.
Okay. Sweet. Let me tweet
Internet time. People are like, are you really streaming right now? You didn't even announce this. The answer is yes. We don't have to announce anything. We do what we want.
my birthday, and it's because my party got rained out. So
coronavirus has made it hard to have a traditional birthday party. So y'all might know.
Many things that coronavirus has cruelly taken from me. My third party. Because I'm like a big birthday brat is the thing.
Yeah.
Once a year, she becomes baby.
Once a year, I am baby. And like on my birthday, I'm baby. I'm baby and I'm woo girl. And I get to be as messy bitch I want to be. And everybody just rolls with it because the rest of the time I'm literally spending 100% of my conscious energy trying to keep the world from falling apart. Like for one day out of the year, I can just be baby.
When I turned 27, I took a picture of myself like shirtless in a bib crying and and I posted it and I was like, I'm this many months old today, however many months 27 years is.
That's very good. That is indeed good. I got a full signal up to invite some people on.
All right, it's birthday time. We don't know what we're doing, but Rachel, you've been missing a lot of the live streams, so it felt like this was a good excuse to like make you live stream.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know,
I have been so busy. Like,
have there been things going on?
Just
in the world.
Few things going on that might
things that might keep an activist busy.
Things that might have me busy.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, primaries, right?
I guess that's it. It is primaries tonight in Georgia.
The single thing that's happened politically in months.
It's the only thing that's going on. So let's talk about that. It sounds like the prediction right now is that Nabila Islam will come in second, and that like whether she comes in like a close second or a far second is what's going to matter because she's going to get in that runoff. And if it's a close second, then she can close that gap, which is like what Donna Imam is doing in Texas right now.
Oh, yes. I was actually driving around in Atlanta today and saw a bunch of Mariam signs too. Or Mariam, I mean. So,
that's dope. That's very cool.
Yeah. Right? I was just like, yo, Mariam signs. That's fucking cool. This is over in like the bougie side of town too. Like, not like,
some of those Atlanta political folks that we've been rooting for are actually like doing it. They're making it happen. That's very, very exciting.
It's all
I wish I could say that like the same shit was going on here. God.
No much luck.
We did have actually, there was a bit of a press to get out some not so progressive Democrats at the state Senate level, and it was not entirely successful, but it was not entirely unsuccessful, and that was kind of a cool thing.
That is
so it's like the state Senate is just like pushing a little bit more progressive, and that's been happening for a while here now. So that's like, if this trend keeps up every cycle with the state Senate getting a little bit more progressive, it's really going to be like a pretty sweet thing here, honestly.
I mean, like if incrementalism actually works anywhere, I will be proven wrong on a lot of things.
Rachel, what do you make?
I don't know yet. I'm gonna make a drink. What should I make?
Drink time.
My only opinion.
I haven't had a single drink yet today.
You haven't had a drink yet on your birthday?
Yeah, well, just like if I drink too much, I'll get a migraine, and then I'll have to stop everything. But if I get a migraine and go to sleep now, it doesn't matter because it's already fucking 10:30 or whatever.
Rachel, can you make two, whatever you're about to make?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna make a last word because that's like my favorite goods here.
Yo, how about last turd?
What?
Fucking own your favorite thing on your birthday.
Oh, Lau's here. Oh shit. This seems really popping off now.
Hi.
Damn. Oh, I gotta put on some fucking
Lau, have any exciting things been happening in your local politics? We're just kind of casually talking local politics here at the start of the birthday stream.
Yeah, one protester, he was demonstrating in our county, got hit by a truck. Fortunately, I think they're okay, but the local news hasn't reported at all. And when they confronted, we got the plates, so we know who this guy is. And then I think the police like contacted this dude, and they just let him go.
Damn.
So no one in like our bubble really knows about what happened, because pretty much like only news that came out of like the protests and stuff is like, oh, they just damaged property. So it's like, it's really frustrating. I think that's the only thing that's really happened so far, but it's just kind of like, damn.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And I know like this has happened a lot in other places too.
Yeah.
And at least like people
protesters are being
kind of know
attacked.
about it.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's hard not to see a direct line. And especially like in the case, I have a friend who was at a protest in Indiana, and a guy on a motorcycle tried to run down some pedestrians. It's kind of weird. Like, I mean, not that you can't hurt or kill someone with a motorcycle, but it still seems like that's a little bit of an odd one. But he tried to run down some pedestrians. It turns out he is related to a cop that, you know, works in that town. And it's like,
Is to do vehicular homicide, you know?
yeah, I'm sure that's just all coincidence, and that there's no relationship between any of these things, you know?
Waiting for somebody to buy it when it was like orange and yellow, like Little Tikes plastic cars.
Oh, what if, like, what are the names? What is the name of that company that makes those little kid cars that are like modeled after real cars?
Like Micro Machines, or like
no, like the ones the ones you actually drive in.
Power Wheels.
What if like somebody was like trying to run down some protesters in a Power Wheel? Just
oh, shit.
Honestly, we got our kid one of those for her birthday a while back though, and like I have been run into by those things, and it will give you like one hell of a bruise.
Well,
is it
that's fair.
Is it less than, worse than, or about the same as being hit by a rubber bullet?
Oh my god.
It's not a rubber bullet based on people's exploded eyeballs.
Yeah. That's I've also been hit by the Power Wheels, and I still have all of my parts, if that gives you anything to go by.
Okay. That's reassuring.
Yeah.
I've gotten hit like by like a BB bullet. Like a little pellet.
One time my brother accidentally shot me with an airsoft rifle. Like, he thought it was empty, and he was like, it's not loaded, and he pulled the trigger and immediately shot me.
Did it hit
That's the best.
It's like a very solid argument in favor of trigger discipline, frankly.
Yeah.
My brother now has many guns, so hopefully he learned his lesson.
I really hope so.
That you're not ready to kill someone with tomorrow.
Yeah, he shot me like straight in the leg.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I mean,
well, that's the Joe Biden way, you know?
Yeah.
He was progressive at the time.
That's right, yeah. They get a silver lining.
Ways he didn't fully appreciate.
You know, Bernie Sanders said that Joe Biden will be the most progressive president we've ever had, or something like that today.
Bernie Sanders is fucking dead to me.
He's fucking out.
Bernie Sanders is the reason Bernie Sanders is currently pulling 10% of the Georgia primary.
It's so true. It's so true.
Bernie.
Chickened out like a bitch.
Didn't he he came out saying that he didn't want to abolish the police, right?
Yeah, fuck him. He's the enemy.
Abolish the police.
What are we gonna replace it with, though? That's
Power Rangers.
Ah, shit. Now you're talking.
Let's do.
Just Power Rangers.
Area now.
I want to see if I could get my my auto-tune set up.
You know, I think Pika Lucas got it in 2024.
Let's get this shit popping. Can we stream music, or are we gonna get banned?
I want to stream music, but I want to be in control of which music streams.
I don't know how. I've been trying to figure out if we can add music to the StreamYard streams. I haven't figured that out yet. We're so professional. I know that if you share your screen, that it like doesn't play audio, which is unfortunate because we've been trying to like show videos of stuff happening and it doesn't always work. But if it's like a live video, like us, you know, turning our webcams on, that's fine.
I don't have
It's
the
about time you get back. Jesus, you start the stream and then you run off for 10 minutes.
I needed booze, and I was still yelling from the background,
I'm
so I
sorry.
was still here.
I'm sorry, I wasn't good enough.
Ooh,
Asa, why are you freaking out?
testing.
Why are you flipping?
They're not in here, so they're on the
Why
other
you
side of the computer.
Lay down.
Asa, lay down.
Asa, lay down.
Lay down.
Did any of y'all watch the like Power Rangers marathon stream on Twitch?
No.
That happened like before the new movie.
Asa, I will put you outside. Sit. No.
No, but it sounds awesome.
It was super awesome. It was just nonstop Power Rangers for
Wow,
days
you got,
and days and days.
you got that auto tune. So,
I remember,
Yeah,
I remember when they did that
your
for my
birthday.
first birthday.
it's my birthday.
We
But-
gotta do this auto tune.
That's right.
Happy birthday for me with auto tune.
Yeah, can we get some happy birthday out of
Happy
team?
birthday to you.
Yeah. We love it.
I like how you figured out how to do these awesome backgrounds.
Thank you.
How do I here we go. This is how I share this. Share.
Oh, they're using this folder apparently. Let me. I am not. Anyway, okay. We have no plan.
No, we don't.
There's no plan. There's no agenda. It's late.
It's my birthday.
We might talk about politics. We might not. It's Rachel's birthday.
Plan is to have a good
Welcome to the stream.
What's up? Hey, everybody. Drop some messages. I don't know. Can people like respond to us without actually physically joining the stream? How does that work?
Yeah, they can comment on any platform.
But does it like integrate?
And we get it all. We get it all. You haven't been on StreamYard enough yet. It's so good.
I
It's
know.
so good. We've been doing these streams every afternoon, and they've been really fun. Like,
Dude, live streaming is the future.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool. We've been talking about police abolition all week, and you know, tomorrow is a really busy content day, and I don't know what to say. Fuck.
Yeah.
Power Rangers. Replace the police with Power Rangers. That's all I have to say.
I mean,
Honestly, teenagers with attitude would still be way better than white supremacists with guns. So.
I mean, look, the Power Rangers are community-oriented
Yeah.
law enforcement. It is, you know, of and for their community.
now, are they
Basically.
still going to be fully militarized, or will they be banned from using Zords in combat?
I mean, I think, see, we've talked about the fact that like a lot of police, like stuff that the police are doing needs to be handled by like maybe broken up into like a number of different agencies, right? And so like, you know, a lot of the things that like police are quote unquote supposed to solve should really be handled by some kind of social services, right? But sometimes you need an ass kicker, and that's when you call the Power Rangers.
Well, okay, so you break down the infrastructure, and each one of these networks of caregivers has their own Zord. Like the social worker, firefighters have the saber-toothed tiger.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah.
And instead of like military police, what we have is a coalition of social services that when they all collectively, unanimously agree they need to kick ass can become the
then they can, when they all collectively agree to abuse their power, then
right.
it can be abused.
Let me ask you this.
That's That's like a decent compromise with people who like cops. Fine.
Let me ask you this.
Have 5 different community like organizations agree that somebody needs to get beaten within an inch of their life before it happens.
So who's the one asshole that gets to keep Dragonsword?
Me.
Okay.
Not safe for walks against Dragonsword, obviously.
Yes. Not,
Yeah.
and
How many people have the Power Rangers killed?
Are we including
Right? Think about that.
Cuddy's people?
no, they're literally not.
Okay. Did they kill Rita Repulsa?
I think they do kill a few of the bad guys.
Matt Brady.
At
Matt
least it's very implied.
from Facebook. Hi, Matt.
Wait.
Let me see
Wait.
this one.
Kimberly smothered Jason with a pillow.
Does social services Voltron have legal immunity? I don't know. I don't know.
I'll send you a link.
Hi, Matt Brady.
Like, if we get like the Power Rangers, we get one Gundam just
And
for
give
the
it to-
entire country.
we get one Gundam and we give it to Ilhan Omar, and she's the only person allowed to do violence allowed to do state violence. Period. There's one person, and it's Ilhan Omar, and she has a Gundam. That's the end of the story.
And honestly, we could even sell it to Idpol Lips because she's a woman of color and she's a black woman and she's
How could-
so
yeah, but
that's like their ideal like symbolic token person. And she's awesome.
she is awesome.
But like we could even get the Idpol Lips on board.
Which Gundam?
Oh, which Gundam is she getting?
That's
That is Death Scythe?
Yeah.
It's a pretty good choice. I'm having trouble immediately coming up with a better choice, so I think you're onto something here, possibly.
Yeah, I'm like,
What's the name of the Gundam that they have in Iron Blooded Orphans? That's a pretty good one.
I've seen a lot of Iron Blooded Orphans. I don't remember the names of any of them.
It has a weird name. I remember that.
You know what? I'm for Ilana. We're having that, whatever it is.
She's
Hold on. Here's the question: could Ilhan Omar handle piloting the tall geese?
I think so. Which iteration of the tall geese are we
Just
talking?
the original.
Okay. Yeah, I think so.
Because we know not every pilot is stalwart enough for that, but I think she could handle it.
Yeah.
Did any of y'all watch the new Voltron?
No, I've heard it's really good though.
It's pretty good overall. It is very queer baiting, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But if you can ignore that aspect or yell through it, which is what I did, then the sci-fi aspects are very good.
Yeah.
Little Vegan Pizza says, "What's happening, peeps? We're just shitpost birthday streaming. We have no plans. We're talking about Power Rangers and Gundams and shit. It's just going to be a chill time, and that's it. That's it.
friends from the internet.
I'm having a chill time right now.
Yeah.
This is the last word wine glass because I don't have the right like sidecar glass for it.
Nice.
Has there been like a stream of cars just honking for like high school graduations in your areas yet?
No, but we've had a shitload of those for protests.
Nice.
Yeah. Actually, we're planning one of those for the 15th. We're going to do like a big ass, like, everything is bad protest against austerity, but also, talking about specifically defunding the police and using that money towards things that actually help the community and not cutting, 14% from every single program in the state of Georgia. So we're going to do a big protest for that one. I'm going to bring the guillotine out again.
I know one program we should cut 14% from.
Which one was that?
And then another 86.
It's
It's the police.
the police.
It's the police.
Abolish them. The police are bad, but there are no police on my birthday. That's just the rule.
Yeah.
If you're a cop today
You're not allowed
you're
to watch
not
the stream.
allowed to be a cop because it's my birthday.
Yeah.
And also today is the sex number day. And do you really want to waste a day you could spend 69 in your life?
Nice.
Nice.
I say this.
Nice. 69.
A cop 69 is how many bullets they fire into their wife.
Oh no. What does it actually mean by defunding the police? It means that sometimes you have a system that is no good. It's just bad, and you take the money away from it and you put that money into something else. We do this all the time, every day, for all kinds of things.
Usually
all around us.
Services and things that benefit children and poor people. But
Yeah.
instead, we could stop buying cops fucking tanks.
The politicians defund critical social services all the time like it's no big deal. We're asking for the same thing. We are asking to defund a critical social service because, in fact, this social service is so broken that it is no longer serving anyone, and to instead put that funding into things that might actually work. That's all.
Think of it kind of like condoms, right? Like people who tell you that you really don't need to worry about wearing a condom are exactly the people you want to put the condom on with, right? Saying they're safe. If cops have to keep trying to convince you that they're safe and helping the community, maybe they're not actually. Maybe they're just trying to convince you of this. Well, yeah, but like your cops don't have guns in the UK. Let me respond to Lil Vegan Pizza. Yeah, your cops don't have guns. Ours all have guns. They have tanks. They have like military equipment. They are using it to kill us and to suppress protests, and they're very bad. They're not helping anyone.
So to put it into perspective,
Yeah, the police
Also,
don't.
a lot of European police, and I'm not saying that European police are perfect. I'm sure we could get some people on here who could tell us things that, whatever. But a lot of European police, like, specifically do things like make themselves highly visible and, like, easy to approach. Our cops literally, like, treat you like just, like they're in a war zone and you need to die. That is like the treatment. It's, the war on drugs has created this very adversarial relationship. There were problems before that, but that's one of the things that has like led to this point. We just have a very adversarial relationship between cops and citizens. You do not get the sense out there on the street ever that the cops are there to help you in some way, or that like you could go to them with a problem and actually get help. And in fact, when people are out there, like there's so many stories. Just the other day, one of our guests was talking about, she got shot at like outside her home. Like her home got shot at by an angry neighbor some years ago. And she called the cops about it. And they came by 3 days later. 3 days later. Like if this had been a more serious incident, she just would have been dead. Like they would not have showed up in time to do anything about it. It's just a mess. And so, we need services that actually serve, that actually do something for the people, and it's time. And that's what defunding the police means.
Like if a rape victim comes forward to the cops, they challenge her, they put her on trial. Like most rapes don't go reported at all, or don't get reported at all. It's John Levitt. What's up, John?
Hi, how's it going? Happy birthday, Rachel.
Thank you.
I'm so glad I came in on the rape discussion.
Yeah. You know what? That's fine, though, because we can just directly pivot to something happy. Like about how perhaps in D.C., they took Capitol Hill and cleared out an entire precinct.
No, in Seattle.
Seattle is where it is.
The Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. It's called Chaz.
Okay. So it's the Seattle Capitol Hill.
Yep.
The Chaz Autonomous Zone.
Exactly.
The
Virgin Electoralism and the Chaz Autonomous Zone.
Naming it Chaz is somehow very Seattle, actually.
Although there's some dispute over this, like any good socialist project, some people are calling it the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, and some people are calling it the Capitol Hill Free Zone. And there is not a 100% agreement about the name because it is a leftist project. And of course, Of course.
The answer is Chaz, though.
Yeah, I like the one.
No,
that-
the answer is Chaz.
Yeah, like,
Yes.
Everybody else is going to decide for them. They're going to be drowned out by everyone agreeing that the answer is Chaz.
if you have a perfectly good acronym and then you decide on a new name that is not an acronym, fuck you.
Although I have to say, as someone with a lot of like Ireland and Northern Ireland roots, hearing like seeing signs saying you are now entering free X, like gets my hairs on end.
Mm.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Although, in
I like the ones though that say you are now leaving the USA.
No, that's again, it is kind of awesome that we had an exactly 4-month period from we have to enact change by engaging legitimate political processes to okay, so we're just forming a commune, right?
That's literally what we're doing down here too. John and I have started like piloting an agricultural program specifically designed to support people when they go on general strike. Like the entire point of this agricultural program, which is basically just building community gardens. And, if you work in the garden, you get to take food home, and half of the yield from the garden just goes into the community, right? Very direct. John, I know you'll love this because you love like food equity.
Yeah, I've been spending my weekends working at an existing community garden and like learning everything I can about like building my own and just kind of doing that.
Yeah, and now we're working with like our local library. They have a plot of land that we're going to start like growing food on, and it's great because
That's a great idea.
We're going to get everybody growing
That's
food,
awesome.
and then everybody's going to go on strike because our bosses won't be able to cut our pay and take our food away. And if they try to kick us out of our apartments, we'll just have everybody go on rent strike. So
There you go.
No, it's like, what do people need? They need housing.
So
They need food.
Matt Brady says wars will be fought over the name in reference to the CHFZ, CHAZ discussion we were just having. And yes, I want to confirm that by 2030, there will be no racism, no sexism, and no homophobia. However, the war between CHFZ and CHAZ will be utterly bloody, brutal, and just hard to comprehend in its scale and nature.
Okay. South Park, not to give them any play ever because they're bad, but didn't South Park do that episode?
Probably.
Well, I mean, like this happened in reality. So during the Paris Commune, like one of the big things that sort of dragged down the movement. This is sort of overshadowed by the fact that they literally stopped a war with Prussia, so Prussia could invade because France thought Paris being independent was more of a threat than being invaded by Prussia.
That sounds like the state would do.
Yeah. Is that at the Paris Commune, they got dragged down in an argument over what flag they should use and whether or not they should use the revolutionary calendar established by the previous French Revolution, and not should they storm Versailles, which they probably could have taken. And also, like, should they storm the Treasury? Because, like, they were right next to it and they could have taken it.
Also, Little Vegan Pizza was asking, what is the Chaz exactly? They're a little confused. So basically, it's in Seattle. They have people have taken over a neighborhood. They have thrown the cops out.
Radius.
They have thrown out the cops out of a police precinct. They didn't do this by killing anyone. They just did this by firmly and forcefully, as the citizens, basically peacefully demanding this. And
threw their unaffected bodies against the riot shields and tear gas until the cops got tired of hurting them.
And also, something that's not being talked about enough, cops are running out of tear gas around the country. It is not clear.
They're running out of overtime too, and also they're running out of back muscles because they're not supposed to be wearing riot gear for that long, and they don't know that.
Yep. Yeah. Doing 12-hour days in riot gear for 5 days in a row. Turns out the body cannot really handle that super well.
Yeah, you're not supposed to wear riot gear for more than 4 hours. It's like firefighter gear, but like cops are dumb, so they don't know that. So
yeah. Through the wearing down of the system, these people in Seattle were able to take over this part of their neighborhood and organize around their own principles. And it's called an autonomous zone because they're working for autonomy. So this is an interesting question. Can't that cause anarchy though? Like the clearing of the police?
good.
So let's talk about a couple things first. So first of all, what is anarchy exactly?
Wait, let me interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
Brady, check your Facebook messages and get on stream. Okay, continue.
Okay, but like the anarchy we're seeing is like the anarchy of distributing food and water and medical supplies.
Yeah. Like pretty much every anarchist I know spends all of their time like actively doing mutual aid.
There's been a popular perception of anarchy means Mad Max. It means everybody just going nuts. That is not necessarily what it means. And in fact, if you go back to the roots of the political philosophy of anarchism, it has nothing to do with that sort of scenario arising. So, like, basically, I would make the argument that from a true anarchist philosophical perspective, all human interaction is anarchist anyway. And so when people talk about something becoming anarchic, it already is. The people that want to do violence and do bad things are becoming cops. That's the problem that we're seeing right now. We are not stopping anyone from doing anything. The people that want to do the really bad things are becoming the police and then doing the bad things to us.
Well, it's really just more like the heightening of the contradictions and the hollowing out of the center. Like everyone is just becoming more of what they are.
Sure.
These fuckers need a Gambin, okay?
Although I would like to say, I think the instigating incident of the creation of the Chaz, sorry, it's still funny to say that out loud, is that the Seattle PD abandoned their police precinct and no one really knows why. And
a bunch of conflicting hypotheses too. Like some people think it was because they left it open to try and like lure protesters in. Some people think it's because they just got sick of like beating the shit out of innocent civilians. Some people think it's that they just ran out of supplies.
It's definitely
I will say that in the case of like the Minneapolis precinct, there was some suspicion that they used this sort of like letting the protesters come in and wreck the place as a pretext to destroy certain kinds of evidence that incriminated the police specifically.
Oh yeah, they were absolutely like use that to destroy evidence. But
yeah, not to say that it wasn't that it on no levels this is a victory for the protesters or anything like that, but still like that, like the cops are taking advantage at every level. And when they do something like that, there's always a bit of suspicious nature. And I think in particular, that is something to be watching for if this continues to be a trend, is like, are they just destroying the evidence of their own brutality right now?
Well, like one of the more paranoid, it's fun to say one of the more paranoid things is that they think that the Seattle police precinct is booby-trapped.
Oh.
Isn't that like usually against the law? I mean, I know it's not against the law when cops do it, right? In the same way that throwing tear gas back at them is assault with a deadly weapon. Like, they are the state of exception as per Agamben, but like...
well, like, it's only against the law. It's like chokeholds here in New York State. It's against the law until a cop does it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, cops being defined by state of exception. Let me pull aside and just say, this is Matt Brady.
Oh, okay. Hi, Matt.
What's up, Matt?
Way before I was a podcaster, I was a shit poster, and Matt Brady runs like one of the Facebook groups that's a primary contributor to my like far left radicalization. Like Chapo Trap House and Bernie's got me interested. That's why I became like a hardcore leftist. So shout out to Matt.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like, that group was a big part of why I am like this. That group and everything falling apart. Anyway, Matt's very smart.
Hi, Matt.
Matt, meet Kennedy, John, and John.
You know me.
Woo.
Hi.
We're internet friends.
Yeah, I know, John.
Anyway, we're talking about states of exception.
We're also just talking about the police and things and birthdays, Power Rangers, anything, all the above.
The Seattle Autonomous Zone, which is a thing now.
It is a thing. Rachel, you haven't heard this yet because you haven't been on enough of the streams lately, but actually I've been talking a lot about the fact that police brutality is the issue that radicalized me personally.
It's a good one.
And like, in a way, I'm not surprised that so many people are both upset and or curious right now and trying to learn more. And I think it's a really cool thing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like the first time I really looked at the liberal structure and went, huh, it was when I was in college, immediately after I read Our Prison's Obsolete by Angela Davis. And that was like a watershed moment for me because it was the first time, like I said, I looked at this institution that I had never questioned before in my life and was just like, maybe the institution is bad. And it's like, it's kind of among the many things that have snowballed since then. But yeah, I think it's a really easy issue to rally behind, you know, because anybody with a heart and a mind can look at these horrific videos of cops brutalizing people and say, they shouldn't have the power to do this. You know, like that is such an obvious moral conclusion. So,
And so much of like leftism is really, when you get down to it, based on morality.
yeah, empathy, right? Because I think there's
empathy.
Morality. Like the Christian dogmatic patriarchal morality is a valid morality in as much as it is amorality. But like it's not an empathy-based morality. It is obedience-based morality.
Have you guys seen that that thing going around, I guess, left Twitter, which is about like, okay, left Twitter, what was the thing that radicalized you?
Yeah.
I would like to hear everyone's. I'll do mine at the end.
Yeah, let's see.
Well, I know mine because I told this story a bunch of times. Because I was like, okay, I entered college as a libertarian, but like the bad kind. And since then, I have come full circle and become libertarian socialist, right? But when I first like started really having my ideas challenged, I was taking a bunch of like social psychology classes, and like the first thing that broke for me was realizing that free will is kind of an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it was like, well, then why do we keep punishing people if they're not doing these destructive things on purpose, you know? And then from there, like I remember with the Trayvon Martin case, I was one of those people who was like trying to like, you know, both sides it. And through the conversations I had around that and like the patience of my Black friends, like I came to see like, oh no, this is part of this bigger systemic problem. And then, you know, after the Trayvon Martin shooting, there was like all of these really, really high profile shootings. That was when Black Lives Matter started like really getting a lot of like purchase in terms of its, you know, cultural significance. And really like, that was for me, I think, the turning point. And I suspect that this now, you know, with George Floyd's going to be the same for a lot of people. You know, it's this very striking thing when you realize truly that there is something so rotten and broken at the core of our system that it's killing innocent people in the thousands or the hundreds of thousands or the millions. Also, it's just like they live. But that's a conversation for after this topic.
Honestly, for me, it was being a delivery driver. I saw so many people from so many different walks of life, and all it did was shatter my illusion of meritocracy.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime I would go to like, you know, somebody's house on the rich side of town and they prove themselves to be even dumber than the last person.
Oh my God. I remember like years ago, I went to this couple's engagement party, and this was like, you know, a standard millennial Republican kind of couple, like diet, like very, like very
rose gold cake.
I remember like we were living together, and they showed up. Like when all the Chick-fil-A stuff was happening about Chick-fil-A being like openly anti-gay, they came home like the same day that shit hit the fan with Chick-fil-A that they had bought out of spite. And I was sitting there like,
wow.
like,
at least buy it by accident. Come on.
Party at this place called Country Club of the South. And for those who are not in the South or not in like the Atlanta area, Country Club of the South is like, I guess like, not really like our Hamptons, but like it's where all of the rich white people like have their palaces that they guard like dragons. And I walked into this fucking mansion, like this 3-floor mansion with an elevator that they literally dragged me on a tour of that I didn't want to go on. I was actively avoiding them, and they came and found me and said, "Don't you want to go on a tour, comma, you fucking pleb?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to see your fucking house. Fuck you." But I walked in, and like, the room they were using for their coat closet was this incredible 2-story library. and it was beautiful. It had like the cut through and like the banisters, and like you could see it from the bottom, and it was like something out of a fucking storybook if you're a nerd like me. And in this entire 2-story library, they had like one like 4-foot section of shelf that was half full of books, and every single one of them was Dean Koontz or Stephanie Meyer. And I was
Yeah.
just it was
That's
like a watershed
amazing.
moment for me of like, oh, these people are stupid. Like,
Yeah, I had a moment actually once. It was also like the way I was treated in those richer neighborhoods too. Like I had a moment I was doing delivery in Buckhead, which is like our sort of like, you know, the old white people money side of town in Atlanta.
yeah.
And this lady followed me to my customer's door and was like, excuse me, is he supposed to be here? Because like I looked too poor to be in the building. So she's trying to rob the place.
Wow.
And then I did rob her out of spite. But
Oh well, good for you.
Oh, good. Good call.
I'm glad it had a happy ending.
rich people taught me themselves that rich people don't deserve it. Is my story.
Matt, what made you a left-wing guy?
I think probably when I was in college and I finished, and I was kind of like a liberal, like a far left liberal, but kind of liberal. And I went to business school for a 1-year master's degree, and it was kind of like it was telling you all the things you sort of knew about capitalism, but it was just sort of saying it flatly, like, yes, this business is for making money. And if you want to make more money, convince people that you're, you know, a good company that cares about their people, and you'll make even more money. And so it's like, oh, okay. So like this is telling you sort of like you're seeing how the sausage is made in capitalism. You're seeing how like this is what people think about all the time when they're in business. They're just like cynically
It laid
thinking about
essential truth about not just capitalism but politics generally, that it's entirely about narrative. You know, it's about the story you're telling about what you're doing and how many people believe that story.
Right.
Yeah. So it was very weird, and we would have like debates about what was right about capitalism, and you would end up on these sides of the debate where you felt like everyone's sort of calling you like a socialist or a communist for what you were saying about capitalism, and then you were like, oh, well, I guess maybe I am. Like if I don't think this is right, and this is what everyone else that's a capitalist says, no, this is how the system is supposed to work. You're supposed to get fucked by this. And you're like, but that's not right.
Wrong. Yeah, right. And I think that's like the essential difference too, right? Between the capitalist and socialist mindset. Capitalism is about rewarding the strongest. Socialism is the correct understanding that humanity as a whole is strongest when we behave pro-socially. You know, when we support each other. All of the most impressive things we've ever done have been the work of, you know, thousands of people. And this idea that like there is a single great man, usually white, usually wealthy, you know, who always cis, who is like, you know, so powerful and potent and like competent that he can somehow make something out of nothing. And that's just not true.
Right.
I mean, Hollow Knight was made by 2 people.
Well, you know,
Good.
All right, we
Yeah,
have to
that-
ban
that is
Capitalism is a problem.
Yeah.
Debunked.
I'm going to bet you anything Hollow Knight was built using open source software
Oh,
created by lots of people. It was made on computers that were invented, constructed, and programmed by lots of people. It was made using software specifically for creating like images that was made by hundreds of people.
This
Like,
well,
is-
basically, the entire modern internet is a result of government intervention.
Right.
Well, I guess I'll go real quick. I already kind of mentioned, but like, I will say that like an underlying factor for me in like becoming left wing was just, you know, basically living in poverty for most of my life and still kind of being there. And, you know, that alone is enough to kind of like give you certain views. But also like what I guess like I don't know. By the time I had reached college, I had sort of seen the failings of like liberal politics because that had been like what had been primarily presented to me as like the solution. And it wasn't working. It wasn't doing it. Nothing was getting done. And so I wasn't sure what to believe. And I sort of flirted with a lot of like different politics. And like, especially like for a while, I was kind of like also the bad kind of libertarian. Just because I was like, things are so fucked up. I'm just trying to reject this in some way, you know? What changed things for me was, unfortunately, I haven't been able to figure out this person's name because this was a long time ago and I've been having trouble finding the case because there's so many cases of police murder that it's hard to find like specific ones. But at the time I was living in North Carolina, and the police in North Carolina murdered a deaf person at a routine traffic stop. And it was just a very ugly situation. And reading about this, it was just one of those fundamental moments where you're like, this goes against everything that I've been told is supposed to be the way that these things work. That like, you know, somebody who is deaf is supposed to be sort of upheld and supported by our society, that like our society is supposed to uphold and support the people that need it the most more. Like, you know, that's sort of like taught to you by the liberals, and even the conservatives sort of spout this idea at times that like this is the case. But it's not true. And just that case was so shocking and appalling and disturbing and just such a failure of the system that it started kind of like, you know, moving in a different direction. And I would say that like, you know, from there, the only other like big thing that really contributed that should be mentioned is like also just trying to be a small business owner, but not coming from wealth. That will radicalize you. Let me tell you.
Yeah, the system is gamed against you.
Right. Because that's a whole nother like thing where it's like we've been sold this package of like small business owners are great. America loves them. We will support them. No, you need $1 million to get through the door to get all that love and support that they describe. Otherwise, you're on your fucking own, and everything that you do, you're going to claw from the dirt yourself.
Yeah, I've done freelance illustration and graphic design for a long time, and I've met a lot of people who are like way more successful in the field than I have, you know, than I've been, and it always turns out the missing piece is, oh yeah, I was a realtor for a long time. Like, you know, I was given like $100,000 to start with. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I saw a thing from like the Thinks pantyhose woman who was like, all I had was $5,000 in a bank account. And I'm just like, bitch, like,
even that is
$5,000 in a bank account. Like, let's talk about how unlikely that is to begin with. But that's like the myopia of privilege, right? Is like nobody actually has to see the privileges they have because privilege is blind. Nobody notices a lack in somebody else's, you know, opportunities, right?
We're supposed to be impressed by, oh, they got started in a garage, like as though like having a garage to start in to begin with is not an immense privilege.
Right, because if they had a garage, they had a fucking house.
Yeah.
Right. Or they had someone else's house who was putting the bill for them to start their business.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is
Didn't Jeff Bezos literally buy a house with a garage so he could say he started Amazon in a garage?
Yeah,
that sounds like something he would do because he's like
his parents gave him $300,000 to start a business.
Yeah, and wasn't he a quant
he got a lot
too?
of money.
Like, so like he got like.
He had a huge parental investment. Like it's not like, you know, if you have $300,000 to start a business, you have everything. You know, God, I mean, most people cannot even. If I, you know, fundraise the shit out of everybody that I know, I'd be lucky to have $3,000. Yeah, like.
Yeah, I'm impressed with myself if I can pull together $500 for like a protest. Like,
yeah, but who's the person who just joined with the Tails Kids Troll avatar?
Red Rabbit is our good friend Circa.
Hello.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, we're talking about what made us left wing, and I think Lau's gonna go next.
Yeah, Lau and then Circa.
For sure. Is my auto tune still on?
Yeah.
Take it off.
Sing to us. Sing the story.
Right, I got auto tune my leftist story.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, if you want to get radicalized really fast, just read history, because that's kind of what did it for me. The second thing was like the recession was a pretty big part of my radicalization.
Like you say,
And
but every history major I know is an insufferable libertarian twat.
huh. Maybe they're not just reading the right things.
But they only read
But, like,
World War
I
II. That's the only war they read.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
They're obsessed with World War II.
That's true.
Civil War.
That's true. They like that one too. Oh God, we just described my father.
Yes.
Dad, I hope you're not watching this. I love you. Your politics are shit.
But also I took a couple of really good classes in college, and this relates to like Rachel's point about privilege and not being able to see like the advantages that you might have. The class that I was taking at the time was History of Consciousness in UC Santa Cruz, in Asselexbu. But we were talking about the idea of rights, and so like before I got radicalized, I was kind of like a libertarian, right? So if you're a libertarian, you kind of believe in this kind of universal personhood, right? So like everyone has X, Y, Z amount of rights. These are rights to like free speech and right to your, your personal body and stuff like that. But we were talking about rights in terms of how they're like negatively conceived. And so like they don't give any positive economic or political value, right? Like a positive law would be something along the lines of giving a community assets to like fund their community or something, right? Whereas like most of the laws that we have in America are considered negative rights. It's all about depriving someone of something, right? So like, for example, Donald Trump and a homeless person both have the right to property, even though in reality, those two rights like mean very different things, because Donald Trump has positive property that they can use and leverage in order to create more wealth, in order to do a bunch of other things. A homeless person doesn't have any of that, but they still have the right to own property. And so we only really consider laws in this negative respect. And that's what really radicalized me, was thinking about political projects or economic projects in terms of positive benefits, rather than just depriving things, like depriving an individual of certain rights or something like that. So that was like a really big eye-opener for me. And I'm still getting radicalized like every day, like reading Black Reconstruction by W.D. Du Bois right now is kind of like really helping me understand just how embedded we are in racist institutions, for example.
I want to interject because Little Vegan Pizza brought up a great point, which is that history is written mostly by the victors, who are mostly capitalists. And that is a great point in terms of like why a lot of people don't get radicalized reading history. Because if you just read very basic mainstream history without a ton of detail and without a ton of like kind of perspective from any side except for the sort of white male conqueror perspective, then you tend to get this like sort of streamlined approach that doesn't sound so bad. And of course, we can't look around and deny that like anything has been accomplished under capitalism. Obviously, things have. The question that you get when you read alternative history is, at what cost have these things been accomplished, and who has paid those costs? And a book that I will always recommend when we're talking about subjects like this is The Open Veins of Latin America by Edward Galeano, which I highly recommend everyone, if you live in the Americas, you check this book out at some point. It is like an eye-opening piece about like what was the true cost of colonizing America, because I think people tend to know that it was kind of bad, but not
right.
Not
yeah,
really
like
it was.
the way that history is taught in the United States, I don't really think it's really conducive to really understanding anything at all. Like I don't really remember much about the history I learned in like high school. Like the way that they approach history was like you learn a couple of facts, and this thing happened and that thing happened, and it's like really a summarized version of things. Whereas like in college, when I like read like alternative accounts of history, like actually reading like primary sources of accounts of people who actually went through a certain event, that was way more valuable than like any history textbook in like the United States, like in US history in the US. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like we should really be reading like primary sources of people who went through these events. For example, like people or slaves who saw through some riots in the 1800s, or Chinese communists in the 1950s when FBI had their McCarthyist era, right? So it really contextualizes things in a very different way, and it's way more useful and valuable, I think.
Yeah.
See,
Circa, how did you become left wing?
Oh, geez. Long story short, I started asking questions that really, if people would have just answered them, I wouldn't have looked into it any further. But which usually tends to be how shit works out for me. Like, had you just done the simple thing to begin with, we wouldn't be in this shit show. But I grew up in a military family, which meant that there was a very specific hierarchy for how people were treated, and there was a very specific code of conduct for how you acted around others. Honestly, it was kind of cult-like. It is kind of cult-like, but I want to say I started asking questions around junior year of high school, which, 16, 17-year-old are gonna be little shitheels and ask questions just to be contrary. But it got to the point where I was asking these questions and people were saying, like, shut the fuck up, you're just being a disrespectful little asshole. I mean, I was, but that's not the point. But I had to start doing research for myself, especially around the time where, like, people around me started getting sick with these super rare cancers and shit that, people in their 60s and 70s don't get. But, these people in their late 20s and early 30s were getting sick with them. So I wanted to know why that was. And instead of answering the questions, I was essentially just told to mind my own business and be grateful for whatever I got, which isn't a lot despite what the military might like to say. But it got to the point where it was almost like I was just going behind other people's backs to ask these questions. And I started finding books in the library that, the ones that the librarian will push all the way into the back of the shelf where you're probably not going to find it. But it was just reading those and starting to ask why I believed in the things I did, or whether I actually believed in the things I did.
Sure.
Made me have to consider what the consequences of what we were doing in like Iraq and Afghanistan were. Because sure, shit sucked for, people in these fucking moldy ass houses with not clean drinking water and falling apart schools. But we were droning these schools in Iraq or in Syria. We were just dropping increasing numbers of bombs at a time. And for what? It wasn't for freedom unless you're like an oil baron. And it was just an awful fucking thing to come to that realization, and it came to a point where I just couldn't justify that shit anymore.
Mhm.
And so I guess that's the semi-short answer.
John, I think it's
Got a
finally
question.
your turn.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
well, what you have to understand about me is that for most of my 20s, I was a grifter.
Mm.
No, you
And
can't just say that and not tell the story. You have to tell the
Yeah,
story.
you get what kind of grifting
Were
are
you
we
Candace
talking
Owens?
about?
oh, please, Candace Owens got nothing on me. I was a class climber and professional gate crasher. I grew up from bog Irish trash, and I convinced a whole bunch of people in Manhattan high society that I was related to them.
There you go.
Fucking amazing.
Nice.
I already liked you, but now I love you.
That's
Go
a
on.
good story.
I mean, look, I saw The Talented Mr. Ripley like 5 times in theaters. I knew what I was doing. And my whole thing was I would study rich people. And I would figure out how they move, how they dressed, how they worked. And not just rich people, I would study really rich people, familial rich people, people so rich that, the sign of a frayed cuff on their collar was proof that they were richer than the person they were talking to who had perfectly coiffed clothes. Anyway, after that kind of ran its course, and it's too big a story to talk about here.
Fucking thing. Sorry, I came back just to say that's such a fucking thing. Rich people dressing down is such a thing. Like, I guarantee you, if you are in an upscale restaurant, the person with the rattiest outfit on is the one with the most money every time.
No, it's how the wasps communicate to each other. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was trained in that too, to always dress down from what was expected, because you don't want to be trying too hard.
No, I mean the anecdote I use to illustrate this is, I'm sorry, it looks like all your candles are the same height. Did you buy them all at once?
Dang.
Meaning you bought all your candles at once. Your candles didn't just come with the house, because your house is just like something in the family. Anyway, after coming back from a few, adventures in Venice and Florence, I eventually settled in with my now husband, and Occupy happened. And I had been completely apolitical this entire time. I had been like a vague progressive the entire time. But my politics was I should get as much money as humanly possible. Everyone else, I don't fucking care. But my dear friend Molly Crabapple was very involved in politics. And when Occupy happened, and I got the feel when I was down there at the Occupy encampment at Zuccotti Park that like something could actually happen. Like, there was the music of something beginning, to use it. And I was there when they threw the People's Library, which I helped oversee and organize, into a dump truck. And at that moment I said, I don't know what politics I want, but I want whatever this isn't, which is throwing books into the garbage. And, then I became a communist.
And lived happily ever after.
Well, we lived happily ever after, to quote the Simpsons line, and I was funneling money into the Viet Cong.
So, like, I mentioned this earlier, and I said we would come back to it, and you gave me the perfect segue, John, as you always do. You perfect co-host. They Live is one of the best, most leftist movies that has ever been released. It's a John Carpenter movie from the 80s. It is completely, like, schlocky, kitschy, like, absolutely everything you would expect from an 80s action movie. But it is also overtly leftist. And there is this scene in it. I'll take a step back. The premise of it is that this main character, whose name I forget, the actor, but he had like an amazing power mullet. It was beautiful. he finds this pair of sunglasses that when he puts them on, he can suddenly see that some of the people around him are not people, and they're these horrible aliens. And he starts looking at advertising. And instead of seeing advertising, he sees like, manufactured consent, basically. And
Yeah, it says like breed.
yes, and
They're like obey.
consume, which is like absolutely the messages we're being given all of the time. Like it's not like it's ham-fisted, but it's true. And there's this scene where he's trying to get another guy to wear the glasses, and it's this like incredibly long fight scene. It's way longer than it needs to be. It's like 10 minutes long of them just like exhaustedly punching each other in the face. And finally he gets the other guy to wear the glasses, and it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And to me, that sort of ratcheting is exactly what happens when you become radicalized as a leftist, is you start seeing these systems of power and the way that they're hurting other human beings. And you have to decide, okay, do I think these human beings deserve this? And if the answer is no, if you are an empathetic person who can understand, even in the abstract, that somebody might be a product of their environment and their opportunities, like, then no, they don't deserve this. And in fact, nobody really deserves anything because free choice is a fucking illusion. And so you have this sort of like, these moments of comprehension where you start to see like the system of racism, the system of sexism, the system of capitalism. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. There is no going back, because once you see the pattern, you see it everywhere, all of the time. And it becomes so obvious. And then it's a question of like, okay, well, are you going to do something about it?
Well, to mention another 80s low-budget horror movie, in Society, a similarly 80s low-budget horror movie, you realize that, there really is a conspiracy among the higher-ups to do whatever they want, and maybe they're alien beings, or maybe they're whatever they want, but they know they'll never get punished, and they know they can do whatever they want.
Oh yeah, the people at the top absolutely understand their power, and that is part of what makes them so fucking evil. They do understand that they have a completely different rule book that they follow. And they just feel like they are, by like birthright or some other kind of like intrinsic, inalienable quality about who they are as a person, they deserve to be the exception. They deserve to be the one who makes and also breaks the rules, because they can handle that responsibility and all the fucking plebs can't. And it's this fundamental dehumanization, And you have to do it. If you can't do it, you can't make it in that society. And you become, like me, a fail son.
Well, this is what I talk about when I talk about my focus of study is how social democratic systems fail, or how like reform systems fail, which is that they fail because they leave intact the structures of power. They do a little bit of reforms, they do some wage stuff, maybe they do some welfare society stuff, but they leave in place the fact that the rich can just wait you out. They can wait you out, and they can just legislate out reforms. They can buy people, they can buy governments, and it's very telling that in the Scandinavian societies, the things the rich people fought most highly against and eventually won against was not higher wages or more benefits. It was control within the company, because they know where the power really stands.
Yeah, because real power is not about your pocketbook, actually. It's about who you know, who you can control, and what story you can tell.
Yeah, and if the workers suddenly
assets.
Yeah, and if the workers suddenly have 55% of control over the factory, then suddenly you don't control it.
Yeah, and they don't want that ever to happen, because they don't ever want to relinquish that control. And it's because they like tell themselves they're inherently morally, ethically, and constitutionally superior. But really what it comes down to is they understand on some visceral animal level that they're not anything. That they're just some dude with a job who got way more money than he ever fucking deserved. And if they take this power away from you, you'll never get it back because you didn't deserve it in the first place.
Well, as someone who has spent time with the ruling classes, I can tell you, no, their psychology doesn't even go that deep.
Some it does.
So they're,
So, and I
they're
will
just controlled by aliens called the Capitol.
No, they're just like, there are a couple people. Look, a couple years ago, I would have said there are a couple people who understand like the long game of capital, but they're all dead now. So,
well, I guess that explains why it's collapsing on itself.
yeah, like the marks in the con game are now in charge of the con game, and they don't know it's a con game.
God.
So, like, that's the problem.
Maybe it's different because in the South, it's not that these people, like, they have convinced themselves this is not what they're doing, right? Like, if you asked, like, Brian Kemp, my favorite politician on the planet, why the fuck he insists on stealing elections and, you know, being terrible at his job and somehow failing upwards for the last 40 years, you know, he would say, like, you wouldn't understand the question, right? Like, he has at the very least superficially convinced himself that he deserves what he has and that he earned it. And he doesn't challenge those ideas for himself. But the existential fear, like the essential motivating fear of the upper class, which I don't think is a fully conscious thing, is that on some level they realize that they can't get it back once it's gone.
Mm.
And they're also in denial about a lot of things with respect to like climate change. Like they think they can just get in a bunker and then just live it out. And they don't really think about, I guess, the long-term consequences, but only insofar as they can try to protect themselves. I don't know. I think that's just a really interesting facet.
You know,
I-
consequence, and they don't even have like a script in their head for what they might do if they ever had to.
No, I agree. It's because I've recently had to interact with a lot of like over 60 boomers of the upper middle class, and they do not live in reality at all.
No.
And like they still think like, well, once this is over, we'll be able to sell our McMansion in ass nowhere, Florida, and retire to somewhere cheap. And I'm just like, do you not know you're going to be dead in 5 years?
They're never gonna fucking die. They genuinely don't think of themselves as like a being that will end.
No, and I have gotten to the point where I started, you know, I actually lost connection with a very close family member recently because I just started screaming at them, you're never going to retire based on your metrics, based on your money. Look, I used to do money management. You are going to be unemployed, not retired. You need to accept that. And they just couldn't.
It's just a massive amount of denial.
Well, and I mean, it's not even their fault, really. Like, they were born into this system that told them this was how it was going to be. You know, and at no point did it ever occur to them to, like, challenge that at all.
I know, but they've had 20 years to refigure this.
But, like,
They-
every single, like, source of input they have is telling them, like, no, like, you're still going to have your dream. The dream is still alive. And
I don't know. I just came up with a theory that
That's Antifa takes.
yeah, Antifa's gonna do it, and they're gonna. My theory was like, there's like a point in your life where you stop taking in new information,
Mhm.
and that's what just happened to these people, and it's starting to happen to Gen X. I've seen like older members of Gen
Oh,
X
yeah, Gen X.
unable to take in new information.
Like, literally,
Gen X
the entire
sucks.
Rachel Maddow crowd. All of them. Every single viewer of Rachel Maddow who is under the age of, like, 70.
It's like boomer light.
I'm actually
They're
more mad
libertarian
about
boomers.
Gen X than the boomers because they just they had it all, and then they just were just nihilistic about it. And then now they're just
They had no idea how good they had it because
Yeah.
they didn't feel special enough because their parents were fucking narcissists. And I get that because mine were too. But that doesn't mean that, like, you didn't actually still have fucking everything.
Well, see, like my read on the whole Xer phenomenon is that, well, you know, the whole thing with boomers is that they're narcissists, and the whole thing with Xers is that they're narcissists, but they're self-pitying. and they're like self-effacing about it. But the big thing is boomers are capitalists, Xers are libertarians.
Xers are just like
As
fucking
generation.
nihilistic.
No, they're socially liberal, fiscally conservative.
Right.
That's
What
that.
I really mean is, I don't
South
want
Park.
to look ugly. I don't want to look ugly to people, but I also really don't actually want anything to change. And
It's like, look, I've had Sintra Wilson in my responses, in my replies. Sorry, I don't know what words are. Like so often, and I'm just like, don't you realize you sound like your fucking mom?
never tell them that. They get so mad. If you ever you want a way to shut a conversation down with a Gen X person is you tell them that they're acting like their fucking parents, and they will literally immediately lose their mind. Like,
Right. The only good Xer I've interacted with on Twitter is like Kenny Melman from Kiki and Herb.
you know, I have a couple of Gen X friends, actual friends who are all amazing. But you know, the common ground is that they're like, yeah, Gen X sucks. You know.
Yeah, no. If they can admit their generation is garbage, it's probably a good sign.
And millennials have problems too. A lot of us are still capitalists. It's not working out great. There are definitely a lot of us who are reaching that point where we're never going to learn anything new and don't care to.
No,
But-
way too many of us like startup culture. That's
Yes.
something we could talk about.
People kind of have that cowboy culture of the early internet, where you actually still had shit you could colonize. Although even then it was bullshit. Even then the people who successfully colonized the internet were people who already had money and power. But people,
Yep.
they had this lie they could tell themselves, right?
Capitalism's fine if you have a beer fridge.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm interested in? I'm interested in what Generation Alpha is going to turn into, because they're going to be way more radical than millennials and Zoomers.
Well, you know,
combined.
I just posted this on the Twitter. I said, this is how it goes. Boomers are all the pedos are in the center of the earth, turning everyone into Antifa. Like and subscribe. Gen X, oh, I'm 50 and everything sucks. Millennials, I don't have a job or a house or savings. What is going on? And then it was Gen Z spraying silver paint in their mouth while screaming, ah!
You know what's funny though is actually I work with a lot of Zoomers in the work that I do, and I love Zoomers. And I feel and I've talked about this with people a couple of different times in a couple of different contexts. Zoomers and millennials have a way stronger and more respectful and mutually supportive bond than any of the other existing generations do with each other. Definitely more than millennials and Gen X, definitely more than anybody in boomers.
Yeah, no, we get it. Everything is awful.
At the very least, we were also disillusioned about things ever being good.
We saw the first wave of it being awful. You're living in the second wave of it being awful. Let's deal with
And
it
then
being
everyone
awful.
got the promise of it being good.
Yeah,
Right. And
exactly.
we also have a shared sense of struggle and purpose that we don't share with Gen X. Gen X doesn't think capitalism needs to die, you know? But Zoomers and millennials are in agreement on this. Capitalism's gotta fucking go. So at least until that point, we're working together, you know?
Yeah, no, it's whenever I talk to Sunrise Movement activists, I never have to explain that capitalism is a bad thing. They're that's our base. That's our baseline. We know it's bad.
To deal with people who just understand the problem, to begin with. You don't have to convince them that capitalism actually can't be saved.
Yeah, no, they're yeah, no, we're arguing over about syndicalism. And I'm okay, cool, great.
It's so delicious. I love the young people.
I will
I'm
be
and I am now 30, which means I'm no longer the young people. And I want to say,
I'm the oldest person in this chat, I think.
Yes. As an official old, I want to say I love you.
Official old.
Yeah,
As of today, I'm 30 now. I have to start acting my
Happy birthday again.
titties on Twitter all the time. That's never going to happen.
Has anyone here
Still posting
read
on Twitter.
Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke?
No.
Where
So
the aliens have two
mind
thumbs.
if I-
Go ahead.
the
sorry.
aliens that look like devils.
Yeah, they have like 2 thumbs.
Oh, was it that? Okay, I don't remember that. I just remember the flag devil.
I'm sorry.
You're
I'm
just fucking
super
around.
visual because I'm an artist.
He's like, oh yeah, 2 thumbs, sure.
Go ahead.
But
Sorry.
anyway, you know, at the end of the book where like, they're in New Athens, and all of the kids are just like bugging out and shit, and then they start forming the collective hive mind, and then they start manipulating matter and like create the singularity on Earth. I feel like that's what Generation Alpha is gonna do. They're just gonna like start talking in like Python or like binary code, and like we'll have no idea what they're saying at all, but like shit will start happening. Like our refrigerators will start like closing their doors on our heads or something and killing us. I don't know. That's what I'm scared of Gen.
Gonna be
I'm scared of Gen Alpha.
Look, I always said I will be so happy when the dictatorship of the teen condemns me to death for being a bourgeois reformer.
Honestly, like if that day comes, I will be satisfied. It'll mean that I did my part. Like
Kropotkin said the same thing. It's like, you know, when the people when the future generations send me to death, I will be happy because I was not far enough. And I'm just like, you know, they'll be sitting there going, bourgeois reformer with a high carbon lifestyle, and I'll just be there crying. I'm so proud of you.
yeah, right? Like they'll have me strung on the
Looks like you drove a Prius, so we're gonna kill you. So.
Yeah, when I get hanged from my far right community garden.
Yeah, because it's not just like anybody can walk up and take food. You have to learn how to harvest first.
Yeah.
Like,
Can you imagine like getting executed by like a 4-year-old because you didn't put like the recycling in the right like bin?
But as the proud owners of like a 5, almost 6-year-old, they're like that though. Like I cannot tell you how many times my like little 3'0" daughter who just lost her first tooth will look me dead in the eye and be like, "Mama, that's not appropriate." And I'm just like,
kids have a very good sense of fairness and right and wrong.
and she feels safe enough to call me on my bullshit, which perhaps was my first mistake.
You should have been an authoritarian. It's easier to raise kids that way.
Anarchist parent, and now I have to do extra work.
Now you have to take a vote if you want to go to bed.
Like credit where it's due. My like boomer Xer like cusp mother, she was like right on the like between Gen X and boomer years. She actually was the person who taught me to raise my kid like a person. You know, to like raise, because she raised me as like a person. And when I had like ideas or arguments, she heard me out, you know? And that's definitely not something that she was raised with. So like credit where it is due, both to like my daughter and anarchist parenting and the legacy of that from my mother. Like I was not the first person in my family to conceive of raising kids as people. And I think like a lot of the like elder Gen X parents to millennials and a lot of the like younger boomer parents to millennials, like one thing they actually got right was that they genuinely started actually like looking at children as people with a unique perspective and developmental like approach. You know, like this is totally esoteric and out there, but I want to like, as we're talking about parenting and talking about generational conflicts and stuff like that, give some credit where it is due. Anyway, capitalism is bad though. And it's my birthday. I have, speaking of my delightful mother, she gave me a Cookie Monster cookie for my birthday, and I'm very seriously considering eating it.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. I most recently cut my mother off.
Oh, I'm sorry. That sucks.
Yeah, it turns out she's a fascist, which is really wild considering like she was one of Carrie Fisher's friends in Hollywood.
How do you? No, that makes sense though, because it's Hollywood. Like that, like Hollywood is. Your friendships are like 70 to 80% based on whether that person will further your career, and they're.
Well, I mean, like with her, it was 70 or 80%. Was like, does this person have coke?
Yeah. Well, that's like if you follow the coke trail long enough, you get to people who will give you a career. So.
Right, and I always kind of thought of my mom as cool because like she knows Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo.
Wow.
Right. But like with the protests and whatnot, like she just became incredibly right wing during lockdown. I think she's watching a lot of YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And
Like all of those conspiracy stuff.
well, I think it's just what YouTube recommends to her because she's always been kind of
Algorithm is making her fascist.
Oh no.
no, because she's always been kind of like hippie and alternative. Like she's the reason I don't
She's
take
like posting Pepe the Frog now.
No, it's like she's the reason I don't take aspirin because I thought that you shouldn't take pills when you were sick. You should just take like ginger tinctures.
Ooh.
Because like she grew up in, Laurel Canyon. So like that's her culture. But like
Anti-vax culture.
right, but like now it's like all that hippie stuff is being like pushed right wing and she's watching like Crowder videos about how the media is lying to you. And she's like, yes, the media is lying to me.
And that is like
That's
the
wild.
essential failure of the US left, right? Like especially like the Democratic Party's version of left.
No, because like we would talk and we would like both agree that like Nancy Pelosi is a horrible person, but like she would come out with like it's because she's not left enough. Like, ugh. I don't know.
But like that's the essential failure, right? Is that the left in the United States has failed to provide an alternative narrative. Like their entire like approach to it is, yeah, things are basically working. We just got to tweak it a little bit. And that's never going to actually fix the problem. And people who are actually suffering because of the problem are never going to see them as allies because they aren't.
Yeah.
No, they're just gonna fall into like this weird quilt of like conspiracy theories in which the right wing can co-opt them. It's like how there are no labor desks at major magazines or publications anymore, and the only place even vaguely centering labor issues is Fox News or the New York Post or other right-wing places because they're the only ones doing it. So if you're interested in labor issues, that's where you're going to end up gravitating, and you're going to end up absorbing a bunch of right-wing nonsense.
One of the things I was thinking about earlier as far as my apostasy with liberalism, that kind of ties in nicely to this. Whereas in liberalism trains you to make excuses for a system that's broken. Like, one of the reasons that I finally get fucking fed up with like the center leftists that exist in this country is the fact that you have to do all of these ridiculous mental gymnastics to prove that the system is working and just, and that you were on the right side of history for defending it. And like all of that energy spent defending this system could be spent on acknowledging the things about it that don't work and making that message palatable to an audience that would receive it in any kind of way. But they just don't do that.
Yeah. They can't be fucked. And also because ultimately it wouldn't benefit them, right? Like they have no intrinsic motivation to do anything about it. So
Yeah.
they don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, you can have this. You can have one of my goofy eyeballs.
Well, Rachel, I gotta go. Happy birthday.
Thank you for being around for my
Have a
birthday.
good rest of your night.
You are my favorite.
All right, peace.
Peace.
We lost Kennedy a while back too. I don't know what happened to Kennedy. I don't know if Kennedy's internet just ceased to exist or what. I'm gonna text Kennedy. Kennedy, where did you go?
I gotta use the restroom 1 second.
Circa's back though, so what's up, Circa? Anyway, it's my birthday. It's the Georgia primary. It's a lot of just silliness and goofery, and I'm on here with John Levitt, John Stackowitz, that's this one, Matt Brady, and we got a couple other people. I think Circa's about to come back on, so we're gonna keep just broadly rambling. There's no plan. There's no real topic. It's my birthday. Politics be happening. I got a monster cookie, and I'm gonna eat it.
It was really good.
It's really good. We have this like bakery, little locally owned bakery that's right by like our house. And we've been getting our birthday cakes from them for like ever, right? Like since I was like a little kid. And they closed for quarantine, but they actually opened up again today on my actual birthday, which I thought was like a sign from the birthday gods that I was meant to have a good one.
Yeah, I was all dead set. I'm like, oh, that's okay. I'll just make Rachel a cake for her birthday. And I'd never done it. I went online. I was like, fuck. This is like an all-day thing.
Uh-huh.
And for the record, I would have done it.
I believe you.
Yeah.
But then they opened, so.
I have a birthday that was cakeless. But they came through, so I didn't have to. Yeah.
Yeah, so the birthday god smiled upon me. We're not actually going to eat my birthday cake until Saturday, though. We had to postpone my birthday party because it rained today. And we're going to have like a grand total of 10 people over outside. But you can't do that if it's raining, so. We're trying to like somehow manage a socially distanced birthday party with like the 2 houses of people that we're close to. We have like our anarchists next door that we love dearly. And then my mom, basically. Anyway, how's everybody else's night going? How's everybody else's my birthday going?
I was working until like 5 and I fell asleep and then I woke back up and I started working and Facebook at the same time. So that's what I'm doing.
Nice.
My wife's over at her sister's house. And I guess they're still over there. I probably should go over there at some point, but I don't know what they're doing. Her sister just got back from the hospital. She had a stroke, even though she's only like 40 something.
Oh, fuck, I'm sorry. That's not
yeah, that kind of. Yeah, it's not good, but.
That is unacceptable.
Oh wait, no, I can't go over there. I don't have a car.
Okay. While we're on the air doing socialist stuff, would you like some money to like rent a fucking something, get a ticket? I don't know how far away they are.
No, I can get over there if I need to. Yeah, I can probably get an Uber if I need to.
Okay.
I don't know. It's already 9. I don't know when they're coming home. I better text her and see what they're doing. Well,
all right. Well.
Now that I think about it, because I was sort of like in work mode until just now.
Well, I'm glad you came on the air anyway. If you need to go, like, be there with your family right now, that's like understandable. John.
Yeah, no, it's just like low effort in the background.
Either John. How are y'all doing?
Happy birthday, though.
Thank you. Yeah, no bad things happen on my birthday except for when they do.
I'm just vibing.
We vibing. Anyway, I've pretty much run out of shit to talk about. It's about midnight. It's about to no longer be my birthday. We had some really interesting conversations.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot later for you, huh?
Yeah, it's.
Oh, yeah, it is later for you.
I would say we had a lot of fun here.
We had a lot of fun here today. We talked about politics.
We laughed a lot. We cried more.
We talked
about Voltron.
We laughed, we lived, we loved.
Or Power Rangers.
We bonded, as we always do, with John Levitt, who's incredible. Matt Brady, welcome to your first time being on the pod. I'm sorry. It's not. There's like our table has this 2-tier thing, so I have 1 foot up on it because I'm getting ready to close out, and I knocked an entire The Lion King themed game over and made a bunch of noise. And on that delightful note of excellent, excellent high quality streaming, I think probably I'm going to say goodnight to everyone. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. Thank you to everybody who left comments. Thank you as always.
Happy birthday, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody who's happy birthday to me. And thank you as always to people who help give us money and keep this whole giant contraption afloat by reaching out to us on patreon.com/notsafe and giving us, just like a little bit of money that we can spend on like this streaming service and occasionally things we need to live. Anybody got anything to plug? Matt Brady, do you want to? Oh, we lost John. Well, John Levitt's online. It's Levitt alone. John is great. Matt, you got anything you want to plug before we sign off?
No, I got nothing.
Okay. Good night, everyone. I love you all.
Night.
Bye-bye.